a lawyer with credibility, success, and experience. Representing people in hundreds of jury trials, Nathaniel Lee is who you want by your side in the courtroom. You've seen the rest, now hire the best. Contact Lee, Cosell, and Feigley today. And now, to address the legal concerns of the community, Praise AM 1310, 95.1 FM presents Legally Speaking. Here are today's hosts.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
This is Nathaniel Lee. So I'm glad that you're able to join us once again. We're in crisis in America as we speak. Today, I'm joined by my superstar, Milton Grimes, famously represented Rodney King, and of course, my Department of Justice expert, Marlon Primes, who worked for the Justice Department for most of the entirety of his career. And there are so many legal issues that we're facing today, it's difficult to determine where to start. But I believe that one of the biggest legal stories, of course, the voting rights case in Louisiana is important. But what I was astounded by this week was a settlement reached between the Department of Justice and the IRS. It was the strangest settlement probably I've ever seen. Department of Justice, who is a part of the administration, and the IRS, which is part of the administration, reached a settlement agreement. Marlon, you recall what this agreement was all about? Didn't make any sense to me.
Yes, well, good morning, Nathaniel and Milton, and your audience, Nathaniel. This is really very interesting settlement. Usually, when we're talking about a settlement, you typically have two sides that are adverse, and one of the fundamental rules is that you can't judge yourself, and if there's a lawsuit involving yourself, you have to recuse or step aside. And in this situation, we have a sitting president of the United States that's suing the executive branch of his own administration that he runs. And so, there was a settlement, despite there being, an over 25-page memoranda, stating the reasons why the case was defensible. And apparently, the Department of Justice reached a settlement and created a nearly $1.8 billion fund to compensate alleged victims of the weaponization of the Department of Justice. And the problem with this, not only is there the fact that the federal district court judge reopened the case because she thought there may be collusion and some impropriety. So we'll have to wait and see what happens. But just creating this fund could potentially allow individuals that were a part of the insurrection, people that attacked our democracy and tried to prohibit the peaceful transfer of power. They may be individuals that would be entitled to compensation. And again, your audience should know, Nathaniel, that this money is coming from taxpayer funds. So a federal judge did halt this particular fund, this payment, because it has to be appropriated by Congress, and that has not occurred. So it's good that there are initial indications in our federal court system to kind of stop or really further scrutinize what's going on. So we'll have to kind of see what happens. But I think there's some definitely legitimate issues that are being raised as it relates to the settlement, as it relates to the lawsuit, and as it relates to this alleged fund for those that have been allegedly victimized by the Department of Justice.
Well, Milton, Marlon, here's my issue. I've sued state and federal government lots of time.
You what? I'm sorry.
I've sued states and the federal government lots of time, right? And at no point has there ever been rollover. It's been extensive discovery, deposition, motions for summary judgment, motion to dismiss. It's been a war. I've never gotten this either the state or the federal government and say, hey, we were wrong, we're going to pay you money. It's always been contested litigation, right? What I didn't understand, particularly Marlon, you come up with a figure of $1.8 billion, right? How do you come up with a sum of money without having the predicate of having claims filed? So in other words, in order to the federal government, there's a process known as the Federal Tort Claims Act. You have to give notice and file that within a statutory time period. Hey, Marlon, is a tort claim for tort, is it 2 years? I can't remember.
Yes, what's known as the statute of limitations, your audience should recognize what that basically means is that it's from the time the act or alleged omission arose, you have to bring suit within 2 years. And then there's another provision indicating that before you bring it into federal district court, you have to file what's known as an administrative claim, and that has to work its way through the administrative agency. And then after that determination, then you can bring a claim into federal district court. So there's a very detailed process in terms of those particular types of cases.
Well, that was my problem. Okay, so in each of the cases, we did a federal tort claim notice. And the problem is, how do they determine that there was $1.8 billion valuation of this case against these insurrectionist people when no federal tort claims were filed? In other words, they came up with a figure without having claims being made, which just is different, I thought. But I did not understand that when I was hearing that. I said, well, this doesn't make any sense to me from a legal standpoint. And I didn't understand how you could say we're going to allocate $1.8 billion to pay tort claims without having claims filed.
Correct. There's been no class action or anything of that nature. So the president, as your audience may remember, filed a $10 billion lawsuit because he alleged that his tax returns were improperly disclosed, and they settled that case. And as a settlement of that case indicated that this fund would be created. But you're absolutely right. These are individuals that have not filed claims. Your audience should also know that many of the individuals that could get money from this fund are individuals that have been charged and convicted or pled guilty. So this really turns justice on its head. And as you may recall, the president, when he came into office, commuted basically throughout the convictions of many of these individuals. And so that was an outrage enough. And now, when the Department of Justice was asked, legitimate questions about how this alleged fund would work, they didn't categorically indicate that those that were convicted or, pled guilty, had their sentences, commuted, wouldn't be eligible for this fund. So this is something that your audience should be very, very concerned about in terms of just, pocketbook issues and then just our system of justice.
Marlon,
Now, yeah, go ahead.
isn't the Department of Justice still working on the Court of Appeal to set aside some of these convictions from January 6th?
They really
up these people.
They really are. And I think, Nathaniel, your audience should really understand, some of the individuals that, were charged. I mean, look at a guy named Stuart Rose, who, was a lawyer, got his law degree at Yale, and, really turned his life mission to really taking up arms against the United States of America. He was convicted. And, many people, that had the same motivations were convicted or pled guilty. And now, their sentences got commuted. And now this universe of people can potentially get taxpayer money. So I was, gratified by the fact that, even your many conservative Republicans raised questions to the acting attorney general on Capitol Hill, asking what the details, what the standards are in terms of giving money to individuals from this fund. So given that outrage, hopefully this very, very bad idea won't be implemented.
Hey, the next issue, moving on, Milton, I don't know how you feel about this, but the NAACP, civil rights leader, and a lot of Black leaders are saying that they want Black athletes to not attend essentially a number of the SEC schools, the Southeastern Conference, which include Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, Georgia, Florida, based upon their redistricting effort. And essentially, what the states have been doing is eliminating Black congressional district by redrawing the maps. And so essentially, the way redistricting work is that if you take the city of Indianapolis, for example, and we have close to 1 million citizens, about 29% are African American. It used to be about 40 some percent minority. I'm not sure what the Hispanic population is after the ICE race every week. But so instead of having the city represented by a congressional person who's familiar with the city to bring business to the city and they want to divide the city up, for example, into 5 parts. And then you take it and you take those parts out to the contiguous county, which would be largely Republican. And the net result is you will have a dilution of the ability in that city to elect a congressional person from that city. Now, and that's kind of in a nutshell how it works. So we've seen some attrition already. Some of the elite 5-star athletes decided to change their commitment. The problem I see, Milton, Marlon, is that now we're in NIL. Elite athletes, when they go to college, unlike when I attended, they're getting up to $5 million to play football or basketball, hundreds of thousands to millions of dollars to play collegiate sports. And this is part of a process of revenue sharing that the elite schools could do, because now, like in the Big Ten, they're getting a substantial amount of money from TV revenue, SEC, TV revenue. And these millions of dollars go into the pot of athletic department, and that's how they were making these huge profit. Milton, when I served on the University of Georgia Law School board, I was looking at our financials, and way back then, I think the football team pulled in like 120 million or something staggering, the football program. And the coaches got paid, of course, and the athletic department, but the football players, when I attended law school there, they never graduated. So after they used up their eligibility, they did not have a career if they didn't play professional sports. Now that's all changed. So in view of the change, what's the probability that this process can be successful in terms of using sports? Because we saw that occur in Mississippi. The Mississippi football player started a protest, and I found out when I was in a golf tournament that is why they removed the Confederate flag.
Well,
and do you think that this process will work? And if so, why?
Well, that was the longest question I've heard you ask on this program today. But Nathaniel, the bottom line is something has to be done to address the disenfranchisement and the dilution of minority votes. We know we have that problem. So how are we going to address it and effectively get something to change? Boycotting an established system that benefits from the athleticism of minority players seems to be something you can touch and handle. So I support the decision to try to get these young players to effectuate some type of change in the redistricting that is going to happen behind this Louisiana case. Now, saying that, I am concerned about the welfare of these young people, these young athletes, both women and men, in this money that they are receiving. And I think it goes beyond the collegiate sports. It goes down to elementary school.
Wow.
My partner taught at an elementary school 2 blocks from here, 54th Street Elementary School. And 2 years ago, there was a young man there who in the 3rd grade was getting NIL money for football,
Wow.
And so I understand there are other junior high school and high school kids throughout this state that's getting money. As a matter of fact, my granddaughter was dating a young man who transferred to her school, Sierra Canyon, a month or so ago, a young tackle. He's a junior at her school. And he gets $50,000 a month.
Per month?
Per month. Is posting on Instagram or whatever the social media network was. When he came, they read that he had bought his girlfriend at that then school a $50,000 car. And so he came to the school with the state of mind of he could buy his way through things. He gave my granddaughter $100 because he was late picking her up from school one day. And we had a major family discussion about she had to give that money back because that wasn't a proper way to do things. And so she gave it back, made several attempts to do so. And I told her father, he needs to give the money back to this young man to teach him a code of conduct that's appropriate in dating situation. She's no longer dating him. As a matter of fact, his girlfriend that he gave the $50,000 car to has now transferred to Sierra Canyon, and she's got an NIL contract. So,
Whoa.
This money thing has just, I think it is, something about it is wrong, Marlon. I'm all about any anti-slavery that you can address. I read a book while I was away on peonage law, Peonage. The peonage system was employed after slavery, and that's where they were arresting young black men for loitering and vagrancy at a store looking for a job, like guys hanging out at Home Depot. And they take them into custody because they said that they were homeless. And the marshal or the sheriff would call a rancher or a farmer and said, you want to bail this guy out? He's in here. He's a good laborer. He's a good, strong Negro, got good muscle. And they would bail him out for $1 or $5 and imprison them, enslave them, for lack of a better word, on their farms, plantations. And they would be indebted to that person for the dollar they paid for the fine. And they will also be indebted for the food and the shelter that they gave them for 5 years, 1 year, or life, another form of slavery. So, I'm conflicted about this NIL money that's being thrown around like it's paper, guys. So I'm a lot concerned with how this money is being accepted and used, because all the families are not sophisticated enough to handle it. And these young people are definitely not sophisticated and knowledgeable enough to handle it. So that's my first concern about the NIL money that are spent. And going back to the direct part of your question, Yeah, I think something should be done, and we got to take by any means necessary, as Malcolm said, sometime to correct this wrong that the U.S. Supreme Court has initiated here. And sometime when you take a step, there's a negative reaction to it too. There's a negative part of it. Everything can't be clean cut and great. So I think the best potential part for that outweighs the negative part that you're concerned with. And if that's one of the things that we can do to change a wrong, then maybe we got to pay the price and do that. That's my 2 cents.
Yeah. Well, I agree with a lot of that, but I think that we were at a point in time. If many people remember the Fab Five at University of Michigan, and Chris Webber and a lot of Jalen Rose, Jimmy King, and that group, and many of them talked about the fact that they saw their jerseys for sale and they had no money. And so that is wrong. And I think the court was right in saying that the student athlete does have a role in their name, image, and likeness, and that kind of created this NIL situation. So I do agree that athletes should be compensated for that. And I think that's important. And the other thing that your audience should recognize is that there's such a small percentage of those individuals that are all-stars in high school that even become successful college players. And even the people that are successful college players, there's a very small percentage of those that become successful professional athletes. So it's important to allow these families to be able to cash in, because this is life-changing money, not only for that individual, but for their families. Now, in terms of the question as relates to the SEC, where a lot of these issues are coming up in terms of voting, I agree that what the Supreme Court did was very inappropriate. But I think we should leave it to individual families to make their own determination, as to whether or not they're going to take this money and whether or not it's something that they're going to use to be able to benefit their family. And I think it's important in NACP, and many of us will let them know, hey, this is what you're getting yourself into. This is the jurisdiction that you're in. And hey, there's a possibility you can get into trouble and not be treated fairly, things of that sort. But I think we got to really think carefully that if somebody accepts a scholarship, are we going to ostracize a person through no fault of their own? Hey, they get a scholarship to an SEC school and decide to go there. I think we should, encourage them, hey, maybe look somewhere else. But if they ultimately make that decision, try to do our best to support them as an African American community. I agree that we should, say, hey, these are the problems, but I just don't want to get in a situation where we're, making it seem that somebody that's trying to benefit their family and accepts a scholarship is somehow ostracized. So, I
Marlon,
mean, that's kind of my view.
We have a
Marlon,
caller.
I'm sorry.
But go ahead. You go ahead. Go ahead.
Imhotep. Go ahead, Imhotep. What do you think about those requests by the civil rights group that the Black athletes go elsewhere?
Yeah, it's not saying
Oh,
that.
good morning. Good morning. Good morning to everyone, and thank you for taking my call. Milton is right. I keep telling you all the three. It's like I keep repeating this. I say this on camera show, and every Sunday. King talked about 3 prongs of getting justice. You all harp on voting all the time. I've never missed a vote. I agree with voting. We harp, Reverend Sharpton harps on protesting and marching. Okay, I agree with that. King said that too. But the third one was boycotts. And for some sort of reason, black people the LGBT, when Target slapped the LGBTQ community in the face about the backing that they had, they completely got in solidarity, boycotted even just as much, if not more than what we did, and they haven't looked back. Wasn't no Jamal Bryant coming in saying no, boycotts over. You haven't heard any of that from the LGBTQIA community. When you slap them in the face, they are going to make you pay. For some sort of reason, we just will not quit consuming. We won't quit shopping. You had lines like crazy 2 weeks ago, sitting out on a Friday in 16 major cities around here, with people of all races in those lines looking to buy a luxury AP watch marked down $350 to $450 AP pocket watch. Fox News jumped right on and said, hey, gas can't be that bad, food can't be that high, economy can't be that bad. Look at all these folks sitting out here to try to get this luxury watch. We're talking about lines at least a block to 2 blocks long in various places. In Atlanta, they almost ran over Lenox Mall, which I've been a number of times. In Miami, in Ventura Mall, they almost ran that over, which I've been there a number of times. Various other places. So what are we going to do? We got to eat this bullet. Now, let me tell you what's happening, what I've read. The schools in the north and in the east, the states where they're not having these issues, they're already reaching out to these players. This is what I read in the ESPN, and I read this in some other sports magazines and listened to some people on Fox Sports Radio talking about it. They're already reaching out to these players. The NIL money goes with the player. It goes with the player. That's why Congress can't come up with any legislation. Trump keeps trying to talk crazy about what he wants to do, this, that, and third. And I'm not going to agree with anything with Donald Trump. Nick Saban sitting up there with Trump in the meeting talking about we got to do something about it. But Nick Saban didn't say anything about all the 13, 15. He was the highest paid person in Alabama for decades. Okay, and no, he's never said anything about his pay. And he's sitting right there with Trump. I'm like, well, we got to do something about it. Anytime Trump says we got to do something about something, some other money somebody getting, I don't want to be on that side of the fence with him. So they have to stand up and take a stand. And many of them are going other places. And trust me, here's the main reason why they can do this. Everybody's on TV. The contracts with the TV and the networks are signed. Big Ten got the largest contract. SEC is nothing no more. Big Ten has won mostly all the titles the last 3-4 years. They just run them over. And the Big Ten has the most money. They've got the largest TV contract of anyone. You don't have to play for Alabama. You can play against the guys from Alabama and get seen. That's the way it is nowadays. Everybody's on TV. Matter of fact, if I show up better against this competition, I'm going to get looked at more. So this is what can be done. I went and researched it. There's about 80 colleges. It's 125 Division I schools. About 75 of them are in the north and the east. They get athletes drafted all the time. They can bypass them tomorrow, and it would not hurt them one bit. Trust me. Don't think MSAP didn't look at this, because I researched it. I researched the east and the north and then the west, California and out that way. They can bypass the SEC tomorrow. That's the only way you're going to get him to understand this evil person, these evil, wicked people, to understand equality. Voting, we had a good turnout in Georgia last week. We'll see where that goes. But when you put your money where your mouth is, or take your money and put it where it is, that's the biggest arbiter of how people feel. The LGBTQIA community took our template, took what went on in the 50s and 60s, they flipped it a little bit, and with solidarity, they do not look back. And that's what we have to do, or we're going to continue to fight the same. Go ahead.
What about this concern that Milton raised, which is legitimate? He's saying that you got a school-age kid, middle school kids getting $50,000 a month in NIL money. I understand that these coaches are making between 8 to 14 million, and everything about them is free. They get free cars, they get free laundry service, they get free food.
They're the highest paid state employees. That. Yes.
Yeah, but what about what this concern Milton raised? How does that affect the family structure when you have kids that can make that? I think, it's a good thing that your kids can make money, but is there a line that should be drawn on this matter?
I think that what we have to do is do better education. Look at what the state of Indiana just did. They passed a law saying high schoolers can get NIL contracts. So what has to happen is, if you're a kid in 7th, 8th grade, my son's on his way to coach camp tomorrow, right over here on 56th Street. He's not the best football player, but he likes it and he wants to play, and somebody got him in there. Okay, he's an A student, but let's just face it. Sports does have the most scholarships when you look at the totality of college. And then let's not leave out track and field either. Okay, most of track and field is 45% African American too. So let's not leave out track and field in that thing too. Because there was a white coach down in Mississippi the other day that said, let them all leave. He said, let them all leave, and we'll just focus on volleyball and swimming and tennis. Those don't bring the money in. The money comes in from basketball and football, track and field, maybe some college baseball, but that tennis and that volleyball, they don't bring no money in. So the point of the matter is that in 7th, 8th, 9th high school, financial planning and financial literacy needs to start in elementary school. But by the time they get to 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th grade, financial literacy should be taught. So if you have this kid that's in the top echelon and he may be getting something, the first thing the counselor at the school should do is we're going to direct you to a black financial planner. We're going to direct you to a black attorney to make sure we get your things straightened out. Because like Jenna said, or like you said, a lot of families may not be adept to handle that, but we have the resources out there. Look who I'm talking to now. I'm talking to the best of the best. From black people, look, we have the resources out there. We just got to make sure that we get in front of them, not the white ones, like a lot of people have been stolen. We just found out this week, Floyd Mayweather said his manager took, what, $175 million? See what I'm saying? So, and look at Floyd, big flashy Floyd. So he never know, and look what happened to him. So, you know, that's what we have to do. Make sure we cradle them, we get them around our people, and that we take a look at LeBron. Everybody around LeBron looks like him. Maverick Carter, Rich Paul, he sent his boys, he went to school with the school, and that's who he got around him handling his business. Thanks for taking my call. Appreciate y'all.
Thank you. Okay, next call.
I want to make.
Go ahead, Milton.
I believe in freedom of choice, and a young athlete and his family should have the freedom of choice. But I do believe in this movement to the degree that you can help educate them to that choice and what that choice means on a bigger scale than just them individually. And I think there should be a strong effort to do so that, you know, we lost a lot of players to the major schools from the black colleges, and we seem to have got through that somehow, maybe not as good as we should have. But, you know, I think it's an effective tool to use, this boycotting of the conferences that happen to be in the states that are employing this new law, the voters' rights law and redistricting. And this is a way to fight it. I don't know how effective it's going to be, but I think it's a good attempt. And yes, Marlon, some of the players probably, if you're this lone black player at the school or the few black players, you're going to get a little eye rolling from your people. It comes with life.
Okay, one additional call. You got a question coming for us. Go ahead, caller.
Let me say this. Nick Saban, I understand, back in 2020, walked his players for the Black Lives Matter. And it helped kind of bring Black Lives Matter to an acceptability, I understand, just from that.
Can you hear me?
From that incident.
Yeah, hold on 1 second. Yeah, go ahead, Milton.
Okay, go ahead.
No, you said Nick Saban's.
Yeah, Nick Saban, I understand, walked with his black players in support of Black Lives Matter. And his players got together and he agreed to walk with them. And since then, he has supported issues dealing with black people. Whether he did it for the benefit of himself and his team, I don't know. But he's one of the names, the big names that sided with a controversial issue at the time. And it was effective. It was effective. So sometimes we got to take these risks and these chances in dealing with the big issue.
Thanks. Okay, go ahead, caller.
Hi,
Hello,
just
Renee?
a comment on.
Yeah, we can hear you. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. On segment that you're talking about, I don't understand. Well,
You're breaking up.
Renee, we're
Attorney
losing.
Grimes. Can you hear me back
Yeah,
now?
we're losing part of your voice.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So I was saying that I agree with Attorney Grimes that it should be an individual decision. But what are we teaching our children? are we teaching them about their culture and what it means to be a Black person and what it means to be part of a larger community? Is that what we're teaching them? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Hello? Okay.
Yes.
So my concern is that we're not teaching our families to stand up for themselves, and that you should be teaching your child there's more than just money. And yes, you need money to survive, but if our forefathers, ancestors had not boycotted for almost a year, if not over a year, today, we wouldn't have the things that we have. So it will take a little sacrifice. And I would almost compare it to, would you be okay with your children, selling drugs? Sort of ethical in the sense that it matters where the money comes from. It matters what that money means in the long run, the ethicalness of the money. To me, that's important to teach your children. And yes, eventually, as a family, you come to that decision, but I hope you think that this is going to help their struggle, everybody else's struggle in the long run. And boycotting is not forever. Boycotting is until you can get the system to bend better or change a little bit. So it's not like saying never go to an all-white school or never play for those teams again, but it's to put some pressure on them so they can stand up for the players that they're having come into their communities. And I think that's what they need to do. If you don't just get an athlete, you get a whole person. You get their family, you get their culture and everything. And if they're not safe in your colleges and stuff, then why would you send your child there? I wouldn't send mine there. I don't care how much money you pay me. I don't care how much we're struggling. We'll figure out another way. But anyway, that's my comment, and thank you for taking my call.
Hey, Renee, there's something that you need to know. One of the schools in the SEC is called Ole Miss, right? And if you Google Ole Miss, when Obama was elected president, they rioted, they did all kind of crazy stuff because the idea of having a Black president was insulting to them, right? Now, Ole Miss had one of the top football programs on the planet last football season. Lane Kiffin was their coach. Of course, he left, but they had two of the best quarterbacks on the planet, right? And their football team, if you looked at them, under Lane Kiffin, it was almost like it was a Black school that was playing, right? So my problem, though, is I can't get over the images that I seen myself on TV of how racist the school was, right? So if I was a marquee athlete, regardless of the amount of money that they would pay in NIL otherwise, there's no way that I would want to go to a school that have such a historical racial discrimination process. I just couldn't do that, and at this day and time. So even with the NIL money, that will be troublesome to me. And so I say that because I think there are different level of bigotry. It's all bad, but there's some that just make you sick to the bone, in terms of their practice. And historically, the SEC was one of the last major conference to desegregate anyway. So that would be a hard decision for me.
I agree with you on that there's different levels. And that's why I say it is individual, but it's like also what you're teaching your children and what you're teaching them, what their value is. Is your value based on how many dollars that they put on your back, how much they buy you for, or is your value about what else they're offering you? Do they value you as a person? And I think that's a difficult thing to teach, especially when we've come so far that we're not struggling. Some of us are not struggling as hard as we used to. At least we don't think so, because we got cars, we got a house, we got this, we got that. We measure stuff in material stuff. That's not too different from the rest of America, but we didn't do that all the time. Sometimes education was more valued than the material stuff you had at one point for the Black community. So let's get back to valuing education. And regardless of, how much they pay you to go to that school, if you can get a doggone good education and play sports and also go professional, awesome. So I think that's my view on it. But I thank y'all for taking my call. I'll let you take someone else's.
Wait a second. One other thing before you leave. Milton made an excellent point. A young teenager, 13-year-old, middle school kids getting $50,000 a month. How do you feel about that NIL money? Do the parents lose control of the household if the kids start getting that type of money? I mean, I think it's great for kids to earn money, but at some point, does it become self-destructive?
I agree. I have small children, and my thing would be, I always look at it's like a gift horse in the mouth. I am skeptical of somebody giving my child $50,000. Like, oh, you trying to buy my child? Oh no, I would be very, very skeptical. I wouldn't take the money. I don't care how much we're struggling. I just wouldn't do it. But that's me. That's my values. That's my principle. Like I said, it'd be similar to me. You bring in $50,000 in the house from selling drugs or whatever, and I'm supposed to be okay with that. I don't know where you got that money from. I don't know who I owe for that money. So that's my personal value. And once again, I'm gonna let you guys go. And I'm gonna say this about New York City: Mayor Mondani is the best, and I'm gonna leave it at that.
What you think that he made it?
Here's the way out of this poverty. They're going to give me $50,000 a month for the rest of my high school career. And all I got to do is sign this paperwork here. And y'all may be able to buy your house out of this community. And I can do something for the family now, because I could get killed tomorrow or injured the next week and we have nothing. So I can earn money for this family now. Even in the third grade, mommy, I can make money for this family. What we going to do here? We got to accept this offer, this opportunity. Okay, I understand that at Duke, and I was looking for it and I couldn't find it on my phone. There's a young quarterback, I believe it is, Marlon. They gave this boy $10 million in college. And I mean, 8 million. Duke gave him 8 million. And I was trying to find the name of the school that has come along and it offered him 10 million.
University of Miami.
Huh?
University of Miami.
University of Miami. And
yes.
will also give his sister, who's up at Oregon somewhere in a school that's unknown, they would give her a scholarship if he would switch schools on them. So Duke has now sued them for interference with the contract. And now this kid is in the middle of litigation that he probably don't understand. It creates a nightmare sometimes for these young people. Welcome to adulthood and capitalism. So it ain't all clean, that's for sure. It ain't all good for them, but welcome to capitalism. That's what I got.
Yes, I mean these families. I mean, it's just so much money, and I agree that you need to really investigate, the school. You need to investigate the history and the environment, the state legislature where you're going to school, and I think what we can do is make sure that these families that are making these decisions, have the appropriate information. I think it's important to share it on shows like this because a lot of times people have forgotten that history. Now the NIL, it's a whole new world out there, and I think you're absolutely right. It is going down to the high school level and then the grade school level. So it's something that we're going to have to deal with as a society. I think it's a better system than we had before. I mean, we had a situation at Ohio State, which unnerved me. We had a talented Black athlete prior. And a few other folks that got suspended because they got $100 or so for tattoos. Whereas you can't get it, anyone that follows Ohio State football, no, you can't even get a ticket for that amount. One ticket. So, I think there were a lot of abuses before NIL. I'm glad that the students are getting paid. But I think what we can do right now is making sure these families have the best information, financial advice, and understand the school and the history of that jurisdiction, that state where they're accepting the scholarship.
Let me put this out there. Renee, addressing that issue you brought up, I know these ball players. I've worked with kids in high school trying to get them in colleges on scholarships or junior college so they could eventually get a 4-year scholarship. And I know their hearts. It's so many of these young men who come from single families who I just want to get my mama's house, Mr. Grimes. I
Right.
don't care if my brain is destroyed in the process. I don't care if I'm 35 years old and can't find my way to the bathroom because my brain has been hit too many times in collisions. I said, you would sacrifice yourself for that? Yes. And they don't have not one have I talked to. I can't say I've done a survey, but I do know looking back, not one have I talked to that wasn't willing to make that sacrifice for their family and especially their mama to have a house. So if you look at the backstory behind many of these athletes, that's a motivating factor a lot of times to make them go to practice, to make them be better, to make them be harder, to get mama that house and to provide for their family at a young age. That's ingrained in them. A lot of mamas teach them that, to be honest about it. So it's just not an easy situation. I know that, to turn down that money. But we can still address some of them who don't have that problem, and maybe the ones who are politically conscious enough to understand, okay, I can get a school education from USC or UCLA as opposed to Georgia, Nathaniel. uh, and it's just an environmental difference. But we got to do something, folks.
Hey, Milton, for the record, I've never been a recruiter for the University of Georgia football team, and here's why.
Okay.
The famous cases against by the NCAA involved the University of Georgia. When I was there, a football team was undefeated. We won a national championship. But the one dark secret that people didn't realize is that those athletes didn't graduate, And so they would go to school, and the University of Georgia had a separate athletic dorm with 24/7 food, nice dorms. Unlike in the regular dorm, they have shared showers and stuff. They had private bathrooms and stuff, and nice facility. Well, they didn't graduate. And so the University of Georgia is the reason that started the academic progress. It was a lawsuit filed, and once it's settled, it became part of the law for the NCAA because the University of Georgia graduate weren't graduating. I mean, students rather, athletes. And that's because, Milton, get this, their first year at the University of Georgia, they made all A's in non-credit remedial courses. They started off 4.0, and I guess we would joke about it, those guys said, what you have to do is just write your name, you got an A. I mean, you spell your name out. It was a joke, but the reality of it, that was the value of their first year education there. So I've not been a fan. And also the SEC, Milton, Marlon, before the ability to pay players, the reports I would get, they were already paying players,
To make
And
that
so,
corrupt, there was a flash come across. They will keep that NIL money if they go to another school. You follow me? So the school is not giving them the money.
well, that case that you mentioned is the guy's name is Darian Minshaw, and that was a $10 million NIL deal. And Duke and Miami, of course, it's in the Atlantic Coast Conference, and they end up settling their lawsuit. I guess they had to pay Duke the NIL or whatever it was, and then the lawsuit got settled. But it's going to be a nightmare going forward with these NIL deals because you get a super talented quarterback, Now we see what the market value is, $10 million now for a top tier quarterback in college.
It makes
You know.
Marlon want to go back to college. I know.
Well, Marlon,
Yes,
I was
we're going
concerned,
to.
Marlon, you in a state that got an athletic budget that's probably got to be in the top 3 highest athletic budgets for colleges on the planet. The Ohio State University.
Yes, well, they have quite a bit of a budget, and they just had to raise that to be able to compete. I think that they did get in the NIL deal a little later than a lot of schools, but once they understood, what the rules were, they did raise significant amount of money. I do believe their budget is over $40 million in terms of NIL. And so I think what's going to happen is that, states like Ohio and, other states that have money or a strong, alumni base or sponsors are going to, be the top schools, are what's going to happen. I think the other thing too, that we have to look at in terms of NIL is that we have students that one year they're at Ohio State and another year they're at another school because, they don't like their playing time, they don't like the depth chart. So that's something we're gonna have to look at as well in terms of, their well-being.
Yeah, there's something I want to also say that I think there was something that was said about the earlier. I can't remember who said it, but the nutshell is this: in collegiate sports, when I looked at the budget, make something clear: the sports that make a profit, like when I was at the University of Georgia Law School board, it was only our football and basketball teams. The other sports did not generate sufficient revenue to pay their costs. So track and field was a loser, baseball, tennis, golf, all those sports relied, when I was on the board, on the football team that generated at that time over 120 million. And what was astounding is that if you wanted a parking and suite at the University of Georgia football, you paid $1 million, you entered a contract for $1 million, and they had about 40 of those at the time. So the net result is the only sports that generate no revenue, number one is football, and number two, basketball. But basketball revenue doesn't come close to what the football revenues are. And that's important because when we're talking about these athletes boycott, what we're talking about, number one, football players, number two, basketball players. And but my favorite sport to watch, of course, Milton, is track and field. And I love that sport, but it doesn't generate the revenue for the university. In fact, like in the Big Ten, Marlon, our sons ran track. When you go to track meet, you walk in for free. There's no admission charge even for the track meet. So, they can't be making money. And I'm not sure where it costs to go to a football game at the Ohio State or USC where Milton at, but track and field here when I went to Purdue was free. Any closing comment, Milton or Marlon?
Vote, 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 please.
Yeah, my comment was just making sure that people stay informed, whether it's about the voting rights, how this is construed, what our state legislatures are doing, making sure that you're listening to shows like this and making sure that you're getting accurate information and really using your influence in your community. Not only is it important to, voice, what are the problems, but encouraging other people that if we want to see change, it's going to have to come through being educated, and it's going to also have to come through making sure that you exercise your right to vote and encourage others to do the same.
Well, be more specific, folks. I agree with Milton and Marlon 110%, but I want you to do something else. I want you to call these 10 of your friends. First, start with your own family. Make sure that everybody in your family who would be 18 years of age by the time you have the presidential election or the state election is registered to vote and do vote. But the second thing, though, is that once you get done with the people in your family, this is a crisis. Once you get done with the people in your family, then call 10 of your friends and make sure they're doing the same thing. We have to start our own Project 2029, and the right-wing people did Project 2025, and we're seeing a rapid deterioration of our rights and our freedoms. We have to have the same attitude starting today and every day to, it's not a matter of you just voting, you got to do a lot more. In order to expect more, you got to do more. And what I'm asking you to do is start with your own family, make sure everybody in your own family, but then reach out and let's make this contagious where we're all doing the same thing. And I thank everyone for listening to our show and thank our VIP guests and our callers. Take care, everyone. Have a nice day.
Okay. Take care, everyone. Have a great week.
Bye, guys.